Hello and welcome to our Desire Mastermind. As you step in here, recognize that we have created a container, a safe and sacred space for you all to come in. And as you come in, to start really just letting go of everything that's been going on today, of all the people, of all the energies, of things you've picked up, just putting those things down for right now. And anyone that you've interacted with and you still feel that lingering, to use that tool that I use where I say their name in my mind, I give you back your energy with light and love, and I take my energy back. I do this consciously whenever I'm working with clients, and I do this if I have to get on a customer service call or some call and I have exchanges, especially when they're tense or awkward or heated or any of that. But I also will do it if all of a sudden I'm going through my day and I start really getting this sense that I'm feeling heavy energy. I'm feeling sad, angry, just disgruntled, or things aren't right. And I'll start saying, whatever is not mine, return to sender, so that I can start seeing if this is my energy or not. And then I'll just start going through people I've talked to during the day, groups I've been in, anything that's been going on. I return your energy to you with love and light, and I take my energy back. So it's a great tool. And if you're sensitive to energy, you can really feel when that energy separates and getting back into your own energy. Every single person you disconnect with like that, the ones that you want to stay in connection with, those connections will reconnect. Everybody we engage energetically, and we connect and disconnect and connect and disconnect. And if you can get to a place where you can go to sleep in your own energy, disconnected from these other people and things, it can really be beneficial to you. So you will reconnect. You can also do these kind of things where you really disconnect from someone, give them back their energy with love and light, and then know that you can renegotiate if and when and what the connection is going to be. So start really taking power for that, your own power back. So right now, just noticing as you breathe into your body and you breathe into your heart, that the bottoms of your feet soften and there's a whirling vortex, and the bottom of your feet open and roots come out of the bottom of your feet, and they go deep, deep, deeper still into Mother Earth, connecting with Mother Earth. And all this debris that no longer serves you, that doesn't belong to you, you release it. It turns to dust. It liquefies. It comes undone. It comes unraveled, and it flows out of your bottom of your feet through those roots down into Mother Earth. And we return that energy to be transmuted into neutral energy. And now, with another breath into your heart, as you give, so you receive. And now you receive love and light to fill those empty spaces, bringing all of that together, and knowing you can just open the bottom of your feet and you can release that at any time. Feeling that leaving your body, you don't even have to know what that is. And as that's happening, you're aware of the opening of your crown, and you're connected to source energy by that golden thread that goes all the way up to source, divine creator, whatever you call that. And just sitting there in source energy at the feet of the divine, doing that trust fall into the lap of spirit, and receiving that source energy and allowing it to fill you and renew you. And coming back down into the seat, right into your heart and your power center, and letting that fill. You're in that cycle of the law of giving and receiving, giving away what you no longer need and what no longer serves you, and receiving what you need that will serve you now. And letting that energy run, staying connected to source throughout the time we are together here. I want you to start focusing on what we've talked about a little bit before, the nuances. When you first start working with manifesting, you hear some things, you see some things, you learn some things, and you start trying them out and you get some results. And then I know one of the frustrating things can be you have this big manifestation and then you go, how can I replicate that? How can that happen again? Or why doesn't it work again? Or what was once working doesn't work. And now we're really going deep into the nuances. And one of the things about this, about manifesting your life and your money and your relationships and your work and all of these things all the time, is recognizing that you are continually broadcasting. You are always broadcasting. And so being way more aware of that. It starts being aware of your energetic state more of the time, being aware of the words that you're speaking more of the time, and then being aware. And that's what we're going to work on today. When we talk about the nuances, I became aware of specific words and specific ways of engaging with what I want. And at first, manifesting, a lot of people seek out manifesting because they're in great need, or they're in fear, they're in scarcity, they're in lack, and there's this hope and this promise of what's available to them. And I started realizing that first I was working with the needs, and I had to learn to get very specific. I need $5,000 this month. I'm manifesting $5,000 this month. And you're working on that. We talked about this a little bit last week. When you come to that place where you finally are mainly meeting your needs, or you come into manifesting and you already have some of your needs met, and you start looking at wants and desires. So you will see me always talking about all three. There's what I need at any time. And I want to really talk to you all today about the energy of need and working with that, because this is a critical piece. There's what I need right now, that manifesting it has to work. I have to make this happen. And you really can get out of your power from that place. Then there's what I want. Things that I want. I want more than that. I want this car. I want that house. I want this vacation. I want a raise. I want more money. I want a new dress, whatever it is. Or I want deeper relationships. I want a healthier body. There's wants. And then there's desires. And desires, when you can align with them and allow yourself to play in that field, they're the most powerful, because when you desire, that rocket of desire, as Abraham says, goes out into the universe and it's supercharged. Desire has a lot of power and passion in it. So there was a big shift for me when I learned to look at all three and use all three. And when I allowed myself to learn how to first allow what I want, and then to give myself permission to allow what I desire, and to live a pleasure-led and a desire-driven life. And that's when it all falls in place. So if we go all the way back to need, when you're in need, you're hoping this works, you need this to work, this has to work, it's working for other people. Why isn't it working for you? What if it doesn't work? And so you're creating, but you can have this scarcity and this lack and this fear in there. And the other thing about need is, a lot of us who are helpers and healers, we're aware of the planet, we're aware of people, we can feel people's hearts, we can feel people's pain. And we know that no matter what lack and scarcity we have at any time, there are people who have a lot worse than us. But what we can tend to do then is we can tend to say, I just want enough. I just want a little. I can't tell you how many times saying, now I just want enough. I don't want too much. I'm not going to ask for too much. And I would always say, well, I want to change that, or I'm not the coach for you, because you're already coming saying, I'm not going to ask for too much. I don't want more than I need. And that is a hard way to live. It's a way that I was used to be involved in a lot of churches, and I very much was in a church community where I was frustrated constantly because that's what they taught us. Everything comes in the midnight hour. If you've ever been part of this paradigm, God will provide, but you'll be on your knees, pulling your hair, wringing your hands, begging and crying and praying, and it will always come in the midnight hour. And that's the way it is. And if you believe that, it'll be that way. And in fact, this church went broke and disappeared because of that. And it was so hard to watch. And I will see people who come and they want to help and they have so much to help. And when they're saying, I only want enough, I just want this much, I don't want to take too much of the pie and all of those things, they're not even really asking for enough to take care of themselves to the level it takes to do this work. And that was the one that hit me between the eyes. When I realized what it really takes to have an online business and to make even a local business too, and to make the impact that I wanted to make. So you really want to first make those adjustments there about anywhere where you're saying, I don't want to ask for too much, I only want enough. What if you want all the great that Spirit wants to give you, and leave it up to Spirit and yourself? And you can get in that, you're looking at other people and what they need. So this is when we're looking at this theory that there's one pie. And parents, especially mothers, will do this a lot. If there really were one pie, they make sure everyone in their family, especially their children, have all eaten a piece, and maybe even their guest, and they get second pieces, and then they'll carve their little piece. But in this, we each have our own pie. So all of your pie that you don't receive, no one else can have it, and it goes to waste. Abraham said, and once I got this, I really got it. You can't be poor enough to make somebody else rich, and you can't be sick enough to make somebody else well. So this is the first level of that, of pulling out of that paradigm and daring to want more, and daring to desire more, and then daring to truly desire everything that you want. Because one, when you're in joy and alignment, it's so much faster and easier to create everything you want. Even to the fact that I've learned we have these things playing that we're not even aware they're playing. Like we were talking about one belief about, if you're going to make money through your work, then it has to be hard for the money to come. And this was an experiment I did just last year. I realized my ego was really all about making this next money goal in my business. But I've been working with all the nuances of all of this manifesting. And so I had been saying, what's the fastest and easiest way to make this money in my business? And I realized, with the help of my coach, what if you took with my business or with my work out of it? Because the universe responds from all different ways. And as long as you're doing your part, the universe provides. And I realized I had a little hitch with that, because there was something where I wanted to create this new level of money through my work and in my business. But I'm always up for a good experiment. And this is something that I learned to play with a lot last year. So say you needed $10,000, you need it soon. Your mind can think of all the ways you can get 10,000. You can borrow it, take out a loan, ask for it, pray for it. You can sell something, you can do work, but at the same time, you can also turn it over to Spirit. And so I had started asking, what's the fastest and easiest way for me to receive $10,000? I did this with a client recently because she was stuck in the same loop. Her money and her work had slowed down. And so she was getting in fear and lack. And then that was getting her confidence about creating the money she needed. And I said, what if it doesn't have to come through your business? And as soon as she removed that piece, her mother had an investment that had paid off and wanted to give her a big chunk of money. And this is what happened to me last year. I kept saying, what if I let go of, I have to make this, because that's ego. I have to make this money through my business. It's the next money goal. Now, I'm not saying money goals are bad, because all of us who have to run businesses, this is where we bump up and we have to find that balance, because we have to watch our money. We have to have money goals. We have to pay attention. But when I was getting stuck with my own ego in it, I switched it and I said, what is the fastest and easiest way for me to receive this amount of money? And within days, the money came in from an unexpected source. And it was actually money that was being held for me. And one of my grandparents, it was somewhere being held for me, and it got released. So it was, once I let it go that it could come from anywhere, that amount of money came in, but it didn't come in through my business. But I was saying it had to come in through my business, and I was blocking it. So in the same ways right now, if you just come up with, and here's a great way to experiment, come up with an amount of money that's a stretch, but you have a true need for it. And remember, the universe responds to true need. The fastest and easiest way to create money is to know where it's going to go. And if you can make it not just go to pay off debts and get me out of debt, it can go there, but some little piece of it can go to something fun or exciting. I always say make buckets of money, and some people create buckets that you're going to put money into. So some people say, I need $10,000 to pay off all this debt. I have all this debt and I can't vacation. I can't do anything. I can't fix my car until I pay off the debt. And I say, just make a little bucket that's vacation fund, or a bucket that's a new car, and start putting money in those buckets too, even if it's a little bit, because money loves speed and money loves to go places. Dr. Joe Vitale wrote a book a few years ago, Money Loves Speed. And it's something that he teaches a lot, and it really is true. And think of the difference of, for my Hawaiian vacation, for my new car versus paying off debt. Still pay off the debt, but in these other things that you want as well. So pick some amount of money that's going to go somewhere where you know exactly where it's going to go for, and then just wake up for a few days in a row or every day and just say, without thinking of it in a negative way or getting in a lower energy, what is the fastest and easiest way for me to create $10,000 right now? Or what is the fastest and easiest way for me to receive $10,000 right now? And that's even better. I made my client even stop saying create, because then she was thinking of it as create it myself through my business. And she had a block right then in her business she was working through, and just receive. And then allow yourself to be surprised and delighted at how that money can come in. And especially when you have needs. So this moving beyond just what I need when I'm scared, or what I need, and get out of the scarcity and lack enough, and get into that. If there's a desire, a way has already been made. Then we move into wants. And to me, wants are like things I would love to have. It can be, I saw that new purse. I mean, I have a thing for purses. So there will be purses that I can remember I'd be looking at them. And I wasn't even looking like Louis Vuitton. I'd look on Macy's. I love that purse. I can't pay that for a purse, but I would keep looking and looking. And so then you see my want was, oh, I want that so much and I can't have it. Instead of, I want that and I'd love to have it. So you want to clean up those energies behind it and you want to start allowing yourself to buy things you want. So I started being a little uncomfortable. Yes, I have to pay off credit card debt, but I am going to buy that pair of earrings or that purse, and I'm going to really enjoy it. And sometimes I would make it a sales goal, like I will buy myself that purse. I'm going to make a sale. And guess what? When I wasn't good at making sales, all of a sudden I made a sale because I had attached a desirable want to it. You can play this like games to build that muscle. And it's all about getting out of those lower energies and those lower levels. So wants are anything like when clients have been wanting a long time for a vacation, I help them start planning it now. I had a client recently dreaming of Paris, all the reasons she couldn't go right now. What would her husband say? But she hadn't even run it by him. And that would be too decadent because there are other things my family needs. We got her in the right frame of mind and she presented to her family and they were like, well, then go. And then she manifested the money because now she was just manifesting the money to go on a trip to Paris, not manifesting the money to go on a trip to Paris that is selfish and guilty and my family won't like it. My husband will be mad and we're low on money. And she went and now she's planning a retreat to take a bunch of other women to Paris. And she just scheduled another trip to Paris. This was last year. And she said, I feel like I need to go back to Paris by myself to plan the retreat. And she just posted it. She's going in April. These are all desires that have a way if you're not telling those stories. So Paris was really a desire, not just a want. So you've got your needs, then you have your wants, and then you have your desires, things that you can feel it. You know what it feels like to desire. Now, here's another one, especially if you were raised in the Christian religion or any fundamentalist or just the hardworking family, or they came out of the Great Depression. You want to clean up your desire too. Desire is not, I wish I could have this, but I can't. That's too much to ask for. Other people in the world, they don't even have food. And, we were raised with that, clean your plate because they don't even have food on the table. I got really uncomfortable with this in 2020, and this is how I worked through it, and y'all will understand. So 2020, of course, the pandemic hits. We've just planned to move back to Dallas. We are leaving Marble Falls, and we're buying a new house. And so people are sick, people are dying, and you see all those things they were posting on Facebook where they were even saying, if you could just tell me one good thing that happened to you in 2020. And I'm over saying, if I could tell you about my 2020, it's amazing, but I was feeling guilty. Like people are dying, they're sick, they're losing their jobs, they're hurting, yet I was manifesting and I was in a high vibration. And so I moved back to Dallas. My first grandbaby was born. I got a COVID special on my house that was amazing. And because I was in a good place at that point, just even by moving, I had lived in a place that I hated and it was affecting my business. When I talked to you all about that, the minute I left Marble Falls and that neighborhood and that situation, and I got in this house, my business started booming. And my coach finally said, I know it's hurting because we're seeing people who are hurting, but you can't make them better by suffering as much as them. And it was still very uncomfortable, though. The blessings in 2020 were ridiculous when everything else was going so wrong. But the other thing I did, because I was in a good place and my family was in a good place, was I ran to the front lines and I said, I will work every day. All my travel's been canceled. I'm just going to work and I'm going to sell people what they want and need. I worked more that year than I've ever worked. I had more clients. I worked around the clock, but I was doing it because there were coaches and I felt like they needed to do what they needed to do, that had to withdraw, shut down, back off, walk back away, take care of themselves. And so there's seasons for everything. But because of where I was, I stepped forward and I kept hitting huge money goals. So then people are saying, we don't have any money, we don't have a place to live. And that's when it can really get in your head, because there's always people with those problems. Are you going to live well when others don't? And that's been one of my hard ones. Even with friends growing up, if I had more than them, I would try to downplay because I didn't want to have more than other people or make them feel uncomfortable. And I'd have this guilt. So when money would come to me, I'd be really bad with it and get rid of it. These are patterns that I had to recognize. So really be thinking about what you all are willing to live like, even if others are hurting, because the truth is now I can give away a lot of money and I can help a lot of people and I can volunteer a lot and I can do all these things because I have money and time to do them. But that's a great example, just because the whole world, it seemed like, was hurting so much. And how do you live well in the face of that? And I had to learn a lot about that. And then moving into 2021. So by 2021, I really was playing with this whole pleasure-led, desire-driven life. And that if you can really allow yourself to get there, everything would fall into place. Now, I've been teaching for a lot of years. If you can learn to not be motivated any longer by moving away from your pain, and you can just follow your pleasure, you'll stop creating the pain, because so many people will wait until it gets so painful for them to move. But then you have to keep creating that pain. And I finally said, what if I don't ever get in that pain because I follow my pleasure and I move ahead of it and it works? So then I was adding the desire driven on top of that. Like, what do I really desire? And this is where this week we're really going to play with you all being even more aware of your continual broadcasting. We're always broadcasting out into the world. And so every time you tell a story, or you even have a thought, oh, who am I to have this? I just found out those other people got evicted, or they lost this, or, other people don't have, but your journey is your journey, and you've got to learn to live well. And then you can choose to give whatever you want to other people, as much or as little as you want to. So the first step of that is to start following your pleasure more and not letting yourself get in pain as a motivator. Now, when my core issues start showing up and coming at me, my mom issues, any of those I'm playing out, I see them and I say, oh, I don't do those anymore. I'm not available for that anymore, because now I see them, or I catch myself sooner. And your core issue, you'll have one thing that will play out. I mean, it can be gone a long time and then it can play out again, because it keeps coming back to you in your new energetic stance. And it's like a pop quiz from the universe. Are you still holding? Are you going to fall back into it? Because I used to have people say, if you have all these tools like Ho'oponopono and theta healing and all those things that we were doing in the healing centers, then why don't you just, and all the clearing modalities, and they'd always say, why don't you clear everything? Because we're not just a stagnant vessel. One, I would say, be careful what you wish for, because if you were able to clear everything, you're leaving the planet because you're done. You don't have to be here anymore. And we're always an energetic being changing. So you don't just clean your car and then it stays in the garage and it never gets dirty. It's going to get dirty again. So it's this, you're always broadcasting, being aware of that and starting to look at. And one thing I used to do is keep a notebook. One time I had this, right, a spiral notebook, and they said, every time you're aware of a need, want, or desire, write it down. And so I got to where I had 50. It was like, I need a new van. I need to sell this car for the highest amount and then find a good deal. I just keep writing everything. And at the end of the year, it's same concept if you've ever kept a God jar and you put your needs, wants, and desires in there. At the end of the year, I would go back and I would see all the things that I could check off because they happen. And here's the magic of it. It starts making sense why things happen to you all year long, because it's moving you toward what you want, need, and desire. But if you're in your own way, spirit has to help move you out of your way. So here's a big one I want you to really think about and see if you believe it or if you can move toward believing it. I now believe that spirit is always working in my favor. So because of that, no matter what happens, now I can say, wow, that's really interesting. I can't wait to see how that was working in my favor, because I believe it's always getting me toward what I want, need, and desire. And it's a long way for me to come, because the way I grew up and how I was raised was everything happens to me. I have no control. I have no power. I don't have a voice. I'm a victim, and things just happen to you. Why do they always happen to me and not other people? So now to totally believe, and I'll say when I'm hit by something that really looks challenging, spirit's always working in my favor. So then the other thing I'll do is I'll say, I call in divine angelic intervention, spirit, clean this up. So I also, if things are a mess and I can't get out of it and now it's creating more, I always call in divine angelic intervention and I'll say, spirit, clean it up. These are, again, things you can use with little things. If you've ever had that on your calendar where despite your best intentions, you've double booked something or someone, especially in your business, no, this is going to create a problem. Some things you can just move around, but if it's going to problem, I got to where I learned to say, spirit, clean this up. And I kid you not, one of them would resolve themselves so that I didn't have to hurt anybody or make anybody upset. And I got to where I believed it. I was like, I know one of these people's going to cancel, something's going to happen. It's like, really give spirit something to do to help you and work with you. And then that brings me to this other part of it, which is commanding. And some people have trouble here. So my very first healing modality was theta healing. It's getting into a theta brainwave state and clearing beliefs. Now I really use Ho'oponopono more than that, but theta healing is a great tool. And my theta healing teachers went off on their own and created their own modality called the One Command. And people in the spiritual community, a lot of people went crazy because it's like, yes, we can do this magic and we can manifest and call things in. But they said, how dare you command the universe or command God or demand? But then I had this other, David Nagel, a mentor of mine. He's become very successful. He has a very powerful story and he's a business coach, but he uses all universal law. And he said in the early days, when anything would show up and it wasn't working, he would smash his fist on his desk to disrupt the field. And he would scream, no, not this. No, no, no. I demand. And it worked. So here, are you able to, in whatever way you can, command? Because the difference is, think about this model of prayer. I grew up in the Methodist church. I'm unworthy to eat the crumbs under the table. I don't deserve it, but I died for my sins. So can I please have this? But in the energy of their prayer, I used to work in a church. I preached in the pulpit and I was a Stephen minister and I did all that. And so I was able to really pay attention. They were teaching you prayer like, I know I'm not worthy or good enough, but do I dare ask you for this little morsel? And it's not the place of power to manifest. We're co-creators with spirit. So there's some level when you start working the nuances with this of commanding or demanding. Now, I always know spirit is the highest of it, the highest in command. I was trying to get the word there. And I always say this or something better. And if something falls through, then I know spirit has something better for me and I trust it. So I also never go, well, why didn't I get that job? I thought I was supposed to get it. I know if I don't get it, there's something better because I say this or something better. So this is really you not feeling guilty, you being in your power, all of those things. And so part of that now, as you're really, like I'm telling you, you're being really aware of what you're broadcasting, catch yourself every time a really natural desire bubbles up. You could see something somebody's wearing or a house they live in. I have another friend, and one day she came to me and she said, I hate my house. It doesn't work anymore now that I work from home and I don't have an office. And she's telling me the way she's living. Like she is an attorney with a 6-figure job, and she's working out of her dining room with no office, and her husband can't make the coffee or make a sandwich and it makes noise. And I'm like, you can't live like this every day. And she said, how do those people buy houses that they love? And she had a story that she couldn't do it yet. So we had to unravel the whole story, because she wasn't saying like, how do they live in $1 million mansion? She was saying she lives in the hill country area in the city. She was saying, how did they buy those $500,000 homes? Now, everything's relative, but in our economy, in those places, a $500,000 home is not like, for a lot of people, it wasn't for her, I'll say, everything's relative, but it wasn't for her. Like, how are people living in those $10 million mansions? But she had a lot of mindset around it. And so she was really having to work through that to realize. And then she was like, why am I living in such fear? Because I can have this. And the minute she started taking the actual action steps to have it, now she's getting it. She's getting the house she wants. She needs it. She wants it and she desires it. And then she got a pop quiz, because then it was like, well, you could play it safe and you could live over here, or you can have the house you want, where you want it, with everything you want. And she realized, this is my chance, because she knows all this. And this is what we do to ourselves. We start backpedaling or backtracking in things. So sometimes we're making stories. If it had been a real story, I would have supported her. Like, well, certainly you don't have the credit for that right now, or I don't know how it'll happen. Now, I always trust people's desires, even if I have no idea how. So I will always go back with you to your desires, but I would have agreed with her to some level. But when I was asking her, and this is how it often is, why she couldn't have that house if she desired it so much, all her stories, as they were coming out of her mouth, she was like, what? Like, she could see she couldn't even believe them. And she started co-creating with spirit instead. And it turns out she can do it, and she can have it, and it's going to work. And she's doing it now. So notice when those desires naturally bubble up inside of you, and put it on your list or make note of it. In the same way, Abraham teachings say, we came in this world to have contrast. That's how we learn manifesting. And so everybody's contrast is different. I have learned that whenever I experience something that I don't like and I don't want, I say, I am not available for that. I'm not available for clients who back out of their contracts. I'm not available for people owing me money and not paying. I'm not available to be disrespected or one-way relationships, all those things. And then I say what I'm available for. So that's another key one you can kind of use about, oh, I'm not available for that. And I am available for that. So you see how all of this is you shifting energetically your power to then meet the universe in the field and co-create with spirit. And one more I want to talk about, which goes back to my theta healing days that I learned, and Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's talking about it everywhere with people right now, and that is brainwave states. And there's a lot here. The tool I want to give you right now, if you don't recognize it yet, when you first wake up in the morning, before you speak out loud and before your feet hit the ground, you're still in a theta brainwave state. That's why you can be, am I awake? Am I asleep? Am I dreaming? Or you can get inspired, and they say, keep a notebook by your bed. And right when you go to sleep, again, you're not talking out loud, your feet aren't on the floor. Those are the times your brain is working in the theta brainwave state. Those are the times you are most impressionable to manifest and create whatever you fall asleep thinking about. That's what you go to sleep and works while you're going to sleep. So think about this. How many times have you or people you know, they go to sleep? Oh God, I didn't pay that bill. Where am I going to get the money? It's due tomorrow. Oh no, is my car going to make it to work? Oh, I had that fight with my mother. I don't want to call her back. Oh, my child is doing bad in school. And then you marinate on that all night long. And then you wake up in the morning and right away you're thinking, I'm late for work. Why did I do this again? I need coffee, all those things. So if you can use those times, sometimes I just say Ho'oponopono because that just goes out and works anywhere, and I'll fall asleep saying Ho'oponopono, or I'll just really be aware of my thoughts. And 2 nights ago, because we had been talking about desire, I did what I call a desire rant. I was having a little trouble falling asleep, so I clicked into my desires, and it was like, if nothing is impossible and everything's available to me, what do I really want this year? And I just kept saying, I desire X, I desire Y, I desire Z. And then I felt into it. And so it was everything from a trip I'm going to take, money in my bank. I'm looking at my bank account, having fun with my husband, my grandchildren, everybody being healthy and happy. And it can be anything. And you can just start saying, I desire, like I'm going to spend a lot of time in Lilydale this summer, and I'm doing a lot of work with Lilydale. So that goes back to when you make more than enough money to take care of yourself, now I'm helping them in big ways by being able to be there part-time, and I'm serving on some committees and volunteering. And so I was just like, I'm walking through the streets of Lilydale, and there's so many people here, and my classes are full, and everyone's happy, and my husband's loving it. And then we're going here and there, and then my grandchildren. And I just did this desire rant until I fell asleep. So really think about everything you desire, every little and big thing, and allow yourself to get in the energy. And do you know that I was able to desire it? Probably, you lose track of time when you're in that state. It could have been 15 minutes, a good 15 or 20 minutes. Not once did a counterintuitive thought come up. Nope, you can't have that one. Nope, that's not available to you. I just stayed in the desire rant, and I was just putting all those rockets of desire out in the universe. And you notice I also didn't say how any of it would happen. So now spirit can take all of it and bake my pie. And I didn't tell him to put any guilt, shame, dirt, crap, anything in it. So these are all things you can be working on, because what we used to do is like, here I'm living my life, toxic environments, toxic relationships, toxic money, all these things, even when I was first running my business. But then we had that healing center. So we'd get in a circle and we'd do a manifesting circle, and we'd all be manifesting and raising our vibration. And then people would say, why isn't it working? Because as soon as you step out of the circle, you're going back into your toxic patterns, behaviors, energy, relationships, environments, and telling those stories. So some things would work, and then we'd celebrate them. But what if you can live that all the time? So this is what you're working toward. And so then the last thing I'll say about that is that means if you fall out of it, if you have a bad day, if you forget, if you tell a story, if things don't go your way, you don't beat yourself up. You just keep going. You say, clean it up. I'm not available for this again. Let's be clear. And sometimes I'll even say to spirit, because I'm really saying it to myself, oh, that again? Let's be clear, like my mentor who'd pound the table. And I've done that a few times just because he says it works. And he was mentored, David Nagel was mentored directly by Bob Proctor. So Bob Proctor taught all that to him. So I will be like, let's be really clear. And sometimes I'm saying it out loud. Let's be really clear, spirit. I am not available for that anymore. That's today. And I'm letting it fall out the bottom of my feet and I'm sending it away and I'm clearing my body of it. And then whatever brings you back, any tool you have that brings you back to align your chakras or anything like that. I've started doing this even more after I get pulled every which way, because you're going to be pulled. I'm involved in things now where I don't always get my way, and there are people that I think are misbehaving and that I'm not in alignment with, and we're all doing our part. And, you know, sometimes you have to be on committees with people you don't see eye to eye with. And at the end of the day, I have this on my phone. Some of you I've shared it with. I have this app. It's called Jonathan Goldman Chakra Tuner. So anything you have that works like that, it's 7 minutes. I turn it on my phone and it does for each chakra, the tone, the chant, and it makes the binaural beats, the vibration. And I tell you all, now that I've been doing it, it will clear that stuff out of my body so that I don't go to sleep with it. 2 nights ago, I did it. And it will clear that out of my body and out of what's going on. So that's the other thing. One is I'm telling you how to manage all the energy, but do you have something really pure? Recently, my daughter said she'd heard about a sound bath, and I know sound baths and I love them. And she had one not too far from me, and she and I went for an hour. I laid in that sound bath. It was magical healing. I could just feel it. So whatever you do, sounds, tones, chanting, meditating, massage, just really get the stuff out of your body and start making these habits and practices. So as all of that is laying, tell me what's gone on this past week, or what comes up for you, or what you're working on, or we have any celebrations and wins, or something that went sideways that you want to look at.
Can
What's
I ask
going
you
on
real
with
quick before?
Maureen?
You had said that you have this saying, and I didn't get the full thing. It's about the desire rant.
Wherever there's a desire.
If there are no, if nothing's impossible, something like that.
Oh yeah. So when I'm saying right before I start that desire rant, I'm going to come at it with, you know, people also were really good at telling us you're a dreamer. That could never happen. That's impossible. So if nothing is impossible and wherever there's a desire, a way has been made, I dare to dig in there and pull up my desires. Also, this is being recorded and you'll get access to those if you want the exact words, because I was just saying it. But yeah, it's like before you start, you're telling your mind, don't even try to argue with me right now, because we're saying if nothing was impossible, and you can have, you know, candy drop dreams and all of that. So and then you just start desiring, and they were just bubbling up, and it was all about how I wanted to feel, what it looks like. None of it was how could that ever happen. And the more you do this, things get easier and faster, because then you're playing in the field. And so for some people who have not done Akashic record or deep meditation or trance or things like that, you might also want to add in, and I'll give you some resources here, and I have some meditations. You might want to start practicing going into what we call the field more, just getting in that space where you feel what it feels like to get in there, where in the field, this is the unified field where everything is energy, nothing is form yet. We turn everything into form in the 3D. So everything is there and you impress your energy on it and it turns into form. And so you have to learn to get your mind, who wants to be helpful, out of the way. Your mind, it can be from surviving and protecting. And if either of your parents or your family line taught you this, they survived things and they were protecting themselves. So these are survival mechanisms that get passed down. But if we don't live in their era, or we didn't live in that home, or we don't need that anymore, we don't need to carry it. But they weren't wrong or bad. Some of these things saved their lives. Like imagine if your family lived during Nazi Germany, they learned coping and survival mechanisms that might not work if I try to use them right now, but they worked for them. And that's the only way they stayed alive. So some where people learn to say, that's just dreaming, get back there in the hard work, or they're trying to survive starvation or concentration camp or the Great Depression. And we know people have those hardships again now, but it's that you want to get in that state of you're just doing your desires and you don't want any of that mixed in, because really, I just believe anything is possible and miracles happen whenever you see something, people say that was a miracle. What it was people did this manifesting and they collapsed time of how long it would take for something like that to happen. They collapse time. And so it happens sooner. And then we go, wow, that's a miracle. I mean, in this day and time, if you're following Dr. Joe Dispenza right now, because he's doing all the science experiments, there are spontaneous, chronic, physical healings happening. There are people getting out of wheelchairs. There are people with blood disorders. He's following people for a year and he's got controls on these things. Thoughts are clearing people's blood and healing people's bodies. So if that can happen, so that's what I'm saying. It's not the time for you to be practical. There are other times to be practical, but with your desires, it's like, I know that it's spirit could orchestrate it. I would have told you just 1 year ago, oh, spirit's going to ask me to buy a second home that I have to pay cash for, no loans. And I'm going to tell my husband we're moving to New York for part of the year. And I'm going to go to Lilydale, and I don't even qualify to go to Lilydale. And they told me it would be a 2-year process. It only took me 6 months, start to finish. Because spirit fast tracked me. See, because I didn't even buy into it. I didn't buy into it when they said, this is what, and then they said, oh, and there's politics and there's things that go on. So I just kept saying, I always tell spirit, like, shield me from whoever doesn't need to see my stuff. Even online, I don't want trolls. So I just say, I don't know who's going to be for me and against me. So shield me from anybody who's going to cause me trouble, that they don't even see my stuff, and then put it in front of the right people. So that's just the time when you just suspend all disbelief. And then there I was like, this is really happening. This is crazy, because I believe spirit had it all worked out. And if spirit asks me to do something, spirit's going to provide. And that's one of the things, a lot of healers, I was there, so I can't say I don't understand why they don't believe it. But spirit would never ask you to do something that you can't do or have the resources for, and set you up for failure. And so now that I know that, I just busted right through that with Lilydale. And people were like, how did that even happen? And I just believed it would because spirit asked me to do it, but I did my part immediately and 100% because spirit can only work with what you impress. Spirit is energy in the field and spirit is not third dimensional. So spirit can handle everything else. All spirit needs is for you to do the physical in the third dimension. And remember this is key. Spirit cannot impede on your free will. That is promised. It's promised in the Bible. On earth, spirit cannot impede on our free will, so it will never rush to our aid until we've already gone first. And that's where people are like, spirit didn't show up. Oh, I used to have a big story. Spirit asks me to do things, then spirit doesn't provide, and spirit left me all alone. No, those are stories from my childhood, and then me. Then I learned to not take care of myself and show up for myself. Spirit is never not there. So see, it's things like that. If you really believe that spirit will never drop you, no matter what, and wherever there's a desire, a way has already been made, then it has to be true. It just has to. So that's the energy. If you feel that and just let that land, it really gets in your heart and your solar plexus and then your throat, and it really fills you up. But this is about the stance you start with. It's really hard to manifest from those lower places. If you all are familiar with the scales, there are two scales I use. One is Abraham, and I'll put them in the group for you. I'm getting ready to open that and put all those in there. There are two spirals. And then if you know David Hawkins' power versus force. So Abraham has their emotional scale and power versus force, David Hawkins. And they measure everything as energy. And it's on a scale of 0 to 1,000. And they said Christ lived in 1,000 as an example. Christ consciousness, if you believe he walked the planet, which I do. And most of the population, this hurt my heart, is living under 200. And you'll look, and 200 is despair, hopelessness, sadness, grief, anger. Anger is higher than depression. Anger at least starts motivating. And at 200 is courage. And then above 200 is enlightenment, and everything all the way up to 1,000. And so we have to start recognizing from 200 and below, you can't manifest. It takes so much. It's not that you can't. There was somebody, I can't think of her name now. She took that scale and made a whole business because love is at 500, and she called it love and above. And all her work was geared to keep people, to bring people up to 500 to love, and then keep them always at love and above. She may still even be around. These scales can be so helpful because they also show you on this scale that's all those lower energies. If you're in any of those, you're always spiraling down, but on the other spiral, you're always spiraling up.